Hi guys, it's Jess from Honest Fiction, and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I am sharing my November TBR. Alright guys, so I'm sure many of you are aware, if you follow me on any of my social medias or the community page on YouTube, October was a very, very rough month for me. And honestly, this entire year has not been my favorite. I've had some really, really hard times. I've also had some really beautiful events and moments over this year. But honestly, this year has been hard and my reading has really taken a hit because of it. So I feel like last year I was kind of upset with myself that I only read around 16 or 17 books in October. This year, I think I read 9. So once again, my reading is just really, really down this year. Now, I am reading a bunch of amazing books, and honestly, I've read some of my new favorites this year. But because I know I am not reading the way I did in the past, we're gonna change this TBR up a little bit. So I am only gonna be discussing the books that are priority, that I am definitely getting to in November, mostly because they are either Patreon read-along books or they're books that I am just desperate to read. So all of the books are fantasy romance besides one really, really, really dark dystopian, and I am very excited to talk about them with you. Now, if you're unfamiliar with my channel, I post new videos every Wednesday and Sunday. If you haven't yet, please like and subscribe. You can also hit that notification bell to be notified whenever I post new bookish content. You can also check out my Instagram, Goodreads, and Patreon, all linked down below. With all that out of the way, let's talk about the books I want to read in November. Alright guys, so as always, starting off with my fantasy romance book of the month. So over on my Patreon, every month my patrons get to vote between 3 different fantasy romance books. Once a winner is selected, I make an exclusive Patreon graphic that I add to the Discord. I also add the book to the Discord so we can discuss the book as we are reading. And at the end of the month, we have a live show, which is book club format, so you can appear on screen and we all discuss the book. So this month, my patrons selected Once Upon a Demon's Heart. Now, if this book looks familiar, it is because it was on my last 2 TBR videos. I still have not gotten to this book. I will finally be reading it in November, and I cannot wait. I read other books by this author, and I absolutely love them, but they were dark romances, and I'm very interested to see what she does with a romantasy. Now, this is a time loop romantasy, which is not always my favorite, but I'm intrigued. So in this, we are following a demigod knight who is trapped in this time loop where she ends up murdering a group of what I believe are demons, but she feels a lot of regret about this as the years go on. And every time loop, she ends up being killed by a knight who is also a demon. I think he's called the Blood Knight. So eventually, she gets sick of this time loop, and she decides she is going to marry the Blood Knight to try to put a stop to it. And she's now going to have to marry the person that keeps killing her over and over. And it's their romance. So the plot sounds really, really good, and I cannot wait to read this along with my patrons in November. And moving on to my Patreon read-alongs. So my Patreon read-alongs are open to all tiers, and I am currently running 2. So first up we have the House of Devils series. This is a dark urban romantasy where we are following Lorraine. Now she is an ordinary girl living in a city that is really catered toward paranormal creatures. So one day she and her friends end up going out to a party or to a bar, and they have to make their way home. Now in this city, you're really not supposed to go out after it gets dark. However, these girls end up going out anyway, and they are attacked. Now the people that attack them seem to be trying to capture Lorraine, but because they aren't able to grab her, they grab one of her friends. Now Lorraine is desperate to get her friend back, and after the police don't really take her seriously, she ends up begging kind of like a paranormal bounty hunter for help, and it's their romance and kind of story. So we are up to book 3. I am going to be completely honest, I have not even cracked open book 2. Like I said, October was really rough. So I will be reading it this week, or the week that I'm filming this, because our live show is coming up. But I'm very curious to see what my patrons think, because we had very mixed feelings on book 1. So I'm hoping all of us kind of enjoyed book 2 a little bit more. So anyway, I will be reading book 3 in November. And then I will also be sadly finishing the Legacy series by Melissa K. Roehrich. So Dawn of Chaos and Fury is the final book in my favorite dark romantasy series of all time. I love this book even more on my reread. I have picked up so many things I missed the first time around. And honestly, this was a 5-star read when I first read it, but it is just so unbelievably good. If you like dark romance and you don't mind like Kept or Captive, please read this series. I'm just absolutely obsessed and I feel like I need everyone to read it. So I've already given the spiel for this book so many times. So I feel like most of you guys, if you follow my channel, you know the plot synopsis. Just know, check the triggers. It is darker. And as you progress through the book, it does have a little bit more violence. So know that. But I am not ready to say goodbye to these characters, but I know Melissa has other plans and things in the works, so whatever she writes, I will 100% read. And next up, we have Savage Blooms. So this actually just arrived as I was filming, so perfect timing. But this is by S.T. Gibson. So this is a gothic dark romantasy, and in it we are following Adam. Now, Adam has had a giant crush on his best friend, Nicola, since college, but he hasn't really acted on it. So eventually, he kind of jumps at the opportunity to invite her to go to Scotland. He wants to find this cave that his grandfather used to tell him bedtime stories about. I'm assuming the cave is magical or something like that. So anyway, Nicola agrees and they both head over to Scotland. But as they are searching for their cave, I believe they get lost and they end up at the mercy of this rich, very eccentric aristocrat and her gardener. And these two end up pulling the Americans into a world of enchantment and also kinks. So very, very curious. As soon as I read the plot synopsis of this a few months ago, actually, for a video, I immediately put it on a future TBR. So I cannot wait to get to this. And I'm also so excited Fairy Loot picked it as their book. I'll show you the inside hardback too. It's very, very pretty. And then it also has a gorgeous inside artwork. So another book I will be reading in November. And next up, we have Hollow. Now, this is the start of a new series by Carolyn Peckham and Susanne Valenti, also known as the Twisted Sisters. They're the authors of the Zodiac Academy and the Dark Phase series. Now, I do have kind of mixed feelings on the Zodiac Academy. I didn't love the later books, but those first few books were so addicting. You will fall in love with the characters, and although the writing isn't my favorite, they know how to write a cliffhanger. So I cannot wait to pick this up. I believe it's releasing on November 18th. Now, I'm kind of going into this one a bit blind. What I do know is we're following this girl, and she lives in a world where every 50 years there's this thing known as the Great Hunt, where all of these different warriors and fae and swordsmen go and compete in this enchanted wood, and I guess there's only one survivor. So anyway, our main character is none of these things. I believe she's just an ordinary human, and she is determined to win this great hunt in order to receive a boon that is going to allow her to change her fate. And then there is a beastly prince trying to kill her somewhere in that story. I'm assuming she's gonna have some sort of romance with him, if not more characters, because I feel like normally Carolyn Peckham and Susanne Valenti do love a wide choose moment, but not positive of that, so don't quote me on that. But anyway, I cannot wait for this book to release. So I am just now realizing most of the books on this TBR are books that are actually releasing in November. So that was not done on purpose. It's just going to be a month of new releases. So next up we have Given. Now, this is a dark romantasy, and I actually think it is available now on KU or ebook. However, the audiobook and the physical book aren't releasing until November 18th. But this is a dark romantasy, and I actually heard about it when I was making my anticipated release video and immediately added it to my TBR list. It sounded so good. So we're following this girl that lives in a community where some people are marked, and she was marked as a baby. So she grew up knowing that on her 20th birthday, she would be sacrificed, and she is just totally okay with this until she witnesses her best friend's brutal unaliving during the giving ceremony, which is the same thing that was supposed to happen to her. So she decides, I don't want any part of that, and decides to flee her community, only to stumble upon an injured stranger a little bit later. Well, it turns out that injured stranger is actually someone who was sent to capture her, and it's their romance. Everything about that sounds awesome. I cannot wait to pick this book up. And of course, I will be reading Brimstone, the sequel to Quicksilver by Callie Hart, when it releases, also in November. Now, I fully plan to do a reread of Quicksilver and like a full recap video, but because of everything that's gone down the last few months, that just did not happen. Now, I have been playing around with short form content and actually considering starting a TikTok, so let me know if you guys actually use TikTok for Recs or if you would be interested in that. So I am thinking about posting like just some bullet point kind of notes or like short form recap. Still might do that, but I don't think I'm gonna have time to do a full sit down recap video. So sorry about that, guys. But either way, I am still so looking forward to Brimstone releasing. Quicksilver was one of my top reads last year. It is a somewhat dark fae fantasy romance for those of you who have not read it, but the characters are so good, and I cannot wait to see what happens in Brimstone. And next up is The Strength of the Few, which is the sequel to The Will of the Many. Now, this is by James Islington, and it's actually a straight high fantasy, very little romance, but one of the best books I have ever read. I think it was my top book of 2023 or 2022. I have been waiting forever for the sequel to The Will of the Many. Honestly, the ending of that book, my husband and I spent hours dissecting and trying to figure out exactly what it means, and we had some like crazy theories. But anyway, I do a terrible job of trying to summarize the actual plot of The Will of the Many. The best way I can kind of describe it is if you've read the Aurelian Cycle, take out the dragons and throw in some Harry Potter, and then add a lot of political tension and elevate the writing and the prose, and you kind of get The Will of the Many. It is so good, and unlike any other book I've really ever read, and I just absolutely loved it. So once again, I have been waiting years for The Strength of the Few, and it is finally releasing on November 11th. And last up, I really want to read Born for Silk. So I talked about this in my dystopian / post-apocalyptic rec video, and I actually asked you guys what you thought of this series because I don't know anyone who has read it, and a few of you have said that it is incredibly dark, but honestly, I have been in such a like dark romance mood that kind of made me want to pick it up even more. I don't know what that says about me, but either way, I definitely will be reading this in November. Now, this is, once again, very dark, dystopian, and it's set in a world where because of humans, I don't know if it's pollution or like genetic engineering, but somehow the planet has become destroyed and a new regime has taken over, and humans are kind of separated into two different groups. Humans that have a sole purpose in life, and then genetically like modified humans. So we're following one of these humans who is a silk girl, where her only purpose in life is to have heirs with the king and to pleasure him. And then we're also following the king, who's apparently super like genetically enhanced, and it's gonna be their romance. So very interested. And once again, another book I will be reading this month. All right, guys, that is it for my November TBR. Please let me know down in the comments below, what book are you most looking forward to picking up in November? And I'd like to say a very special thank you to my Paladin protectors, Amanda, Leslie, Christy, Kat, Lada, and Nerdy. Thank you so much for supporting my channel. And I said this already, I post new videos every Wednesday and Sunday. And if you haven't yet, please like and subscribe. I will see you all next week. Bye.